Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Art of the Beholder, a show dedicated to all things eclectic in the world of art, where we do deep dives into deep cuts and help you understand why damn things matter. I'm your host, Novo Day, and today we're going to be talking about art in traditional fine art. And that is through the works of artist, painter, sculptor, set designer, and film director H.R. Giger. To hash it out, we are having a round table today. Ooh, you guys are in for, you're in for it. With two of my favorite Xenomorphs. That is Facehugger Philip with one L, Church of philipchurch.tech. Welcome, Philip.
That was my best alien screech.
That was really good. That was okay. And Chest Burster, Mr. Theodore T. Buck. Buck, welcome.
What's up? Thanks for having me back after being canceled and kicked off the show for a little bit.
Oh, what happened? Can you tell our audience what happened?
Yeah. So, first off, Clayton has informed me I do have to read this statement.
Okay, so, please.
To Parrot Head Nation.
God, we haven't talked about the Parrot Heads in a while. I forgot all of the hate mail we got. You know, they threatened our lives, me and Clayton.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I have to read the statement. Dear Parrot Head Nation, I apologize for my remarks. They were uncalled for, churlish, and I sincerely apologize. From this experience, I've found God, which is a good thing. And I hope you can forgive me, even though you like really shitty music and bad.
Oh, wait, what's that? Guys, can you hear it? Can you hear it? I think they accepted your apology. I think we can move on with the show.
There's less rabble.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we have to move on with the show. Of course. we got to move on because we got to talk about Mr. Giger today. Now, this is just like our Umatsu show because the thesis is short and sweet. This guy was another trailblazer. Changed the game forever, pushed surrealism to heights and bounds and worlds we've never seen before, and changed the art world forever. Now, before we can discuss, of course, we need a little background. His full name is Hans Ruedi Giger. He was born on February 5th, 1940, in Graubünden, Switzerland. Before he went to the arts, he studied architecture and industrial design at the School of Applied Arts in 1970, which clearly influenced his work. He is the godfather of an art style known as biomechanical, which is exactly what it sounds like. It combines human anatomy and physiques with the likes of machines, metal, wire, and the like, often focusing on the surreal, the sexual, and equally the scary, horrifying, and grotesque, where it all somehow culminates together to make something very alluring. In a very weird way, I would argue beautiful. Now, before we hatch it out, a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by the novel The Entropy Sessions, a tale of loss, love, and madness in our past, present, and future relationships with technology. Find it on Amazon and as an audiobook through Audible. Your support helps us continue our journey. Now back to the show. So
Giger would have liked it.
Yeah. Before we hash it out, guys, I think we need to address a little bit of a pronunciation elephant in the room. We're probably, so for all you good people listening, we're probably going to go back and forth with Giger and Geiger. I kind of like the American pronunciation, honestly. Geiger, I've been saying it all my whole life, so I'll probably say it on accident here and there. So don't fucking parrot heads listening. Don't send your hate mail about that either.
Just chill the F out, okay? I already got kicked off of Twitter. I've had to go to True
fully
Social.
Canceled. Yeah,
I don't know anymore.
He lost his agent. He lost his marketing team.
I lost everything.
He lost everything overnight.
He
took the kids, guys.
Yep, it's a rehabilitation, image campaign here. So,
and we're gonna rebuild you. Don't worry, we're gonna rebuild you. Yeah,
yay, cheeseburger in paradise.
So why are we talking about Giger today? So, I pride myself in trying to talk about things that are relevant to the world of the arts and the art community. And this is what I saw, which brought him back into the stratosphere in my orbit, is I kept seeing ads and ads and ads for the video game Scorn. which is extremely influenced by Giger, Bekchensky. Me and Philip have talked about him before. Probably fucking Tool videos, stuff in that world. And so I wanted to tee you guys up by Philip. Let's start with you. When did Giger first get onto your radar?
Somewhere, I guess, around probably like Aliens.
Aliens too.
Just given my age, since like that one, the sequel. I think they didn't bother with the numbering just yet. It was just Aliens because the first one was just Alien. And I think just because that one was more approachable to a younger crowd. The first one was so tense and whatnot, where the second one was just James Cameron, blowing shit up.
He was the king of sequels, know?
So I think that's where it technically kind
Judgment Night, all of it.
I think that's where that probably first came up for me. And then I eventually went back to watch the amazing classic Alien, where they really didn't change a thing between the two, interestingly, almost at all.
And Mr. Buck, what about you?
Oh, I can tell you it was 1996. It was in the month of July.
You have a date and everything.
Seriously. This is true story.
Oh God, give it to us.
My dad and I, we had a dude day. So we went and saw Independence Day. It just came out in theaters. And that was the first time I saw an alien that kind of like, I was like, oh, that's kind of freaky looking, man. Yeah. Is the alien in the in like the suit, not when he was out of the suit and choking Spock, not Spock. I'm sorry. Gosh, Data. God,
Data.
Man, I'm having
TGS,
brain issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you remember,
the parrot has put something in your food or
I don't know.
water or something. Something. Yeah.
So I thought that was like such a cool looking alien. And then I went and I visited my grandfather. I was like, did you see Independence Day? Did you see that alien? It's so scary looking. And he goes, it's an H.R. Giger ripoff from Alien. And I go, what's Alien? He goes, you've never seen Alien? Oh. So as a 12-year-old kid, he goes, we will watch it as long as you don't tell your mom. So we went to Blockbuster, got Alien and Aliens, and we watched them full through, and I was hooked. And that was the first time I knew about Giger. He told me about him and about this artist that had like some weird, awesome drawings. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah, mine was probably about the same as your guys's. I think it was me as a young kid. I've talked about this in shows before. My oldest brother, he's a half brother, so he's 13 years older than me. So he got to experience so much of the art world before me, and then so he got to give it to me, like pass it down at a young age. And I think we were watching Alien or Aliens. This is probably at the time when it was being shown on like TNT, like on cable, they had reruns left and right of this kind of stuff. And I was transfixed. I wanted to know more. And I think when I started really getting a passion for learning about where these things came from, the designs, the graphic designs, all this stuff, that's when his name came into my orbit for the very first time, and probably changed my life forever. Like this is up there with, for me personally, this is up there with Salvador Dali and those guys, those surrealist artists that I have personally been influenced by, to the point where I feel like I wouldn't be the artist I am today without them. So this is I think I talked probably about this with Philip, and probably even you, T-Buck, that I knew that like one day we were gonna talk about this guy, but I didn't know when. I felt like seeing Scorn come back into the fray. It's actually been in like development for, I think,
it was in development
for a long time.
Yeah,
long time.
And I think now. I think it's coming out in October of 2022. I'm not sure when.
October 21st, I think.
There we go. Yeah. So when you listen to this, guys, you may be listening before the game comes out, or around during, or maybe way after. Who knows? But the point is that we got to talk about why and how it was influenced, like how something like this game came to be. And so we're first going to talk about the style of his pieces and themes, and then we're just going to talk about some notable pieces of him. And the first thing that will come to mind when you see this, the look of his pieces are nightmarish, right? They are ghoulish, they are scary, but there's something about it I can put my finger on it a little bit, but sometimes I can't. There's something that's so attracted to it, right? This is a jump ball. Whoever wants to jump in, like, what is the first word that comes to your mind when you look at some of these pieces?
Oh, just comforting and soothing. Really, just good old fashioned American.
That's the thing. Okay,
like
I know
holidays.
you're joking. Yeah, I know you're joking, but I kind of feel that way after a while, though. Like when you really dive into the world, when you're sucked in, you're like, why is this so beautiful now? Even though it's ugly and horrifying and grotesque at the same time.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's what I'm drawn to it, is even though it's so haunting and like grotesque, there's this beauty to it. And I've always been, ever since I started seeing some of his artwork, I've always been really drawn to it just for that fact. There's just, what they call it, psychosexual kind of thing to it.
Oh yeah, we'll get there in a minute.
We'll get there, but
very psychosexual. Jesus
Christ.
But
it's kind of I think there's a beauty.
Visceral. Sorry, I'm still thinking about like
he passed out for a little bit there. He browned out because he was looking at one of the pieces.
I mean, looking at it, it's visceral yet very controlled. It's incredibly measured.
That's a good way to put it.
It's such a weird crossroads between just like gruesome yet also just like methodical. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I actually think that's a very good way to put it. It's meticulous. Like you can clearly see that there was significant thought put into this before he actually put any of the medium. Usually I think you'd use airbrush, things like that, where it actually it wouldn't be traditional paint or oil on canvas or something like that. Before he put any of that stuff in his airbrush, we'll say, he probably really mapped this out, I assume, in his mind, somewhere, and then just kind of went to town and creating this vision that he had for it. And this Giger is on a long-running list we have on this show of, I don't think anybody was quite like him before he came along, and I don't think anybody will be like him after. And that creates an incredible uniqueness, not only an approach and things like that, of course, to everything. And that's where we probably is a good segue to his color theory. So it was very monochromatic. A lot of hard blacks, whites, and grays, which created a lot of silver and chrome looking aesthetics. I did find some color pieces. If he did use color, it would be mostly the monochromatic, strong use of the monochromatic style, but then it would be harsh reds and stuff. I don't know if you guys found anything differently. Let's start with you, Philip.
Yeah, honestly, a lot of it's in some point in the grayscale, and then just slight diversions into some just still very earthy, a few blues, maybe some very, very subtle kind of pink, rosy colors. It's just still natural colors to an extent, because again, everything is obviously very inspired by some sort of living being at some point. But then sometimes it's just that slightest tint of color is almost all that remains of anything that's too recognizable.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it. Yeah, it's a lot of that. What Philip was just saying is it's very much kind of grays, dark blacks, things. I if there is anything, it's usually red. I think I was thinking of something. I think he uses some green tones sometimes. The one I was thinking of was Syl from Species. Is that
okay?
Is that the right one? I thought that.
I think Syl was from a different movie, but yes, he did create the species. Or the graphic design based on what species the film became. Yeah,
so maybe they kind of changed the color scheme a little bit, but it's pretty it's pretty even in that kind of dark blacks,
I think what really what really speaks to me is how he can make things look shiny and chrome and give it kind of the sheen and glisten. And then I feel like, especially when we get to the conversation about the alien, we see that, that oozy dripping goo that the alien that was brought to life in Ridley Scott's film Alien really embodied. I feel like it was really almost perfectly executed. That's why I won a fucking Academy Award, right? But
nothing anybody had ever seen before. It brought a whole new. I mean, it's kind of, I like how you said that we've never seen anybody like him before, and we probably won't. Everybody's tried to mimic him, and I feel like it's just like my example with Independence Day. I mean, that's a total ripoff of one of them, one of his works. But that's just one example. You've seen a ton of that. Just and you could say ripoff, or it's just an influence.
Inspiration,
perhaps.
Homage.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Philip, anything else?
Well,
like I see you like cracking your like knuckles.
How did you know?
Outward, like
get
stretching
out of
like,
here.
I
Get
can
out.
hear it. I can hear it in your
I did.
exhale. Yeah,
I'm warming up. It's just no small easy subject. I don't know, just the ever so slight touches of something recognizable where, it's like, okay, it's clearly got like elbows and fingers and like certain immense, but yeah, I mean, just the Xenomorph alone itself clearly like changed what even Hollywood or just certain types of mainstream art would go to be calling an alien, because I mean, the first movie, of course, it came out in 1979 correctly. I mean, he was born in 1940, I mean, again, he went to like school for like art and stuff, and it's not like he just came out of nowhere with this. So, knowing that even that, like, this clearly was kind of, I would imagine, ruminating in his head for years, and he kept, I was soon like just further like stretching this and just elongating that, and just things just kept morphing and literally, I mean, obviously Xenomorph is what it's called. That, and obviously now looking back, even like the history of the franchise is like, okay, well, now having seen Prometheus, we kind of understand why it looks a little vaguely human, because it's almost like a weird parasitic thing, which is kind of cool that they did that. But just that one with its insanely long head and like lack of eyes and just how bony and just like its acid blood. I mean, there was so many things that we don't have little green dudes, like you don't have like a weird dude it's just got like an exposed brain for a head.
You don't have like a person just in green paint.
Exactly.
Around.
Like, I can't imagine it's technically not that much time in between like Star Trek and then like Alien, that was from the 60s to the very late 70s. So it's just that gigantic leap is it's gigantic.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And before we actually talk, I feel like we're building to like we're going to pick out a few pieces for you guys and we're going to talk about them. But before we get there, I want to talk about how he brought together the look of his pieces and focused on themes and emotional connection, and then made definitely the onlooker, the audience, truly
so turned on. What?
Yeah. Well, I wanted, before we got to the sexual stuff, because that's the fun stuff.
Reddit subreddit r/weird boners.
Let's talk about the seriously repressed demons he had, because I did, I kept the background short, but this guy went through, and this will kind of lead into the sexuality. He was channeling some demons with his work, clearly, because I think he had not only like a tumultuous upbringing. The biggest one clearly was the tumultuous romantic relationships he had. The biggest one being Lee, which he has a piece or a series of pieces that's based off of Lee.
They were just named Lee.
Right, Lee Tobler. He used to date a Swiss actress named Lee Tobler, and she was a party girl, and she died by suicide in 1975. And that, I think that's just one example of all these things that really affected his work. And we saw that through the thematic elements. And just to kind of go through some of the other ones real quick before we get to the sexuality is, those repressed demons, or just demon-looking characters or devil-like creations. So there was a lot of religiosity there, and he would often examine things with both beauty and existential dread, and that leads us to the psychosexual elements of his pieces, and we'll get, again, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, we will eventually get to the Erotomechanics series, but it is just pure, unadulterated sex.
I think another thing that actually really interested me that I could not find good information about, it wasn't in any info about him, but about Lee, was that apparently they like spent some time living in either like condemned or like abandoned buildings.
Yeah, I read something like like their living conditions were just terrible.
Yeah, it was like
it was like really, really bad.
I was so curious to learn more about that, and I couldn't find much about it. But between him studying architecture and like industrial design type stuff, and then going and living, and it's like that almost
clearly,
he's got work. You've got your clean,
the
like
machine side.
Exactly, you've got your like practiced like practically mathematical stuff of like building, and then you've got the natural version of a building, which is just demolished by nature to an extent. And I feel like that couldn't have like not had an influence on him as well. But I would love to have known more about how that also could have influenced what was, like you said, just clearly something being like worked out through the art.
Yeah, I wish I could find more too, honestly. Like, even this morning before we decided to do the show, I really searched the internet for, I would just Google things like, why is his pieces so sexual? What happened?
Right. What was wrong with Giger?
Nothing could really tell. The only thing, most of the things I found, the historians just talk about the pieces and talk about them essentially at face value of what they are, what they're clearly meaning, the themes and things like that. But I didn't. Yeah, maybe it was by design. Maybe he didn't tell his eventual biographers, because he was interviewed all the time in his later life. There's like a million YouTube videos dedicated to this. You can hear how he talks about his work, how his work in the industry in Hollywood. And he's a spoiler alert, he wasn't crazy about working in fucking Hollywood. But just to pull it back, it just was a just this unadulterated, in your face sexuality like we've never seen it. And like literally close-ups of very, very no holds
tons
barred.
of penetration,
intercourse, the whole 9 yards.
And it's not just with that too. I mean, even if we go back to the alien design,
the original Necronom 4, the head design was a giant cock.
It was it literally just was
right. Yes
the back of it was, it clearly ended in a dickhead.
Yeah.
And they kept the elongated design, but they just made it a little less penisy.
Yeah.
Still a little more scary,
ingrained in your
monstery,
mind.
But it's a little less penisy.
Well, and like the mouth that comes out, the tiny mouth that shoots
the
out
second
too.
mouth.
Yeah, I mean
true.
that even has like how it penetrates, bodies,
his
and stuff
victims,
like that.
essentially.
It's very, very similar. So you see those themes around as well. And just one quick thing, I also read, and this makes total sense, that some of the influence too came from him observing like Egyptian mummies. I guess he was really into like Egyptian history and kind of the whole mysticism around that.
Yeah, I can see
and
that.
so if
Some of
you've
like the
seen
poses,
but you know what I'm talking about, Philip and Nova. It's when you see a mummy, you can see the ribs, their bones protruding out, kind of their skin. I wonder if that's kind of where he got some of that, or probably highlighting all the like in all these creatures you can see the bones kind of sticking out.
That actually makes a lot of sense too. Actually, I'm going to piggyback off one last thing, talking about how the Xenomorph itself, which again, if we haven't been too cleared so far, is the like sort of official name of the alien itself in Alien. That species is called a Xenomorph. While they unpenised it a bit for the movie, what's interesting is that even the art director obviously like whoever sort of was dreaming up that script, when they found Giger, they were just like, nailed it, fucking let's go. The aspect of like not only having something that looked even more like a penis bursting out from inside of you, but even all the way down to the face, like every phase of life of this thing was literally like, how can this penetrate you? So the face hugger was specifically designed to make men uncomfortable, because like it's literally like, okay, you've got interspecies like alien rape is literally like the most uncomfortable concept they could think up at the time. So you've got this weird, like,
it worked,
amorphous creature. Like, oh man, and that shit's terrifying. Exactly, it's awful. So it
bursts out of my chest. Let me get this straight. This thing bursts out of my chest.
It bursts out of me, and then it goes and eats someone with a tiny penis mouth,
and it turns into a xenomorph so quickly too. That's terrifying to think of. This life cycle is that it affects us so dramatically, other life forms, and then it still turns into this huge creature that bleeds acid. I mean, it is like the perfect, it's terrifying concept.
Cool. It's so cool. But I mean, the facehugger to me, I think it's more terrifying than the actual. I can
kind of feel that, because it's spider-like, like that little thing crawling
spider-like,
at you.
And then you can't get it off. You can't get it off you, and then it puts a little like baby xenomorph inside your chest, and then like a cock like bursts out of your chest. That's basically, I didn't think of like until you're just saying that, Philip, everything was like all phallic, even like the little
everything's phallic,
dude jumping out there.
Yeah, I mean, literally every last bit of it, and I mean, it just goes to like you might not think about it until because I didn't really realize that until I was looking up this episode stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like even now I'd probably go back and watch the movie and be like all the more thrown off by it. Not to mention there's all like the android blood that also looks shall we say like milky?
Cummy? Ectoplasm?
I think words.
Ectoplasm. It's just ectoplasm.
It's just like say ectoplasm.
Ghost.
Let's segue, guys, to talking about the pieces now. Now we can put all the puzzle pieces together, and I want to kind of build up to the magnum opus that is Necronomicon 1 and 4, which is what the Alien is based off of. So we're going to start in 1967 with Birth Machine and its 500-pound aluminum cast sculpture. What I love about I love this piece. If you don't know what it is, any of you fine people listening, it's essentially like a hollowed out half of what a gun would look like, but with small baby looking creatures as bullets. And before I tee it off to one of you gentlemen, I'm going to start with this. That's another thing I learned about his life is he had as a very little infant, he had a very hard life at a very, very young age, baby age. And I think he either learned about it from his family or there was some traumatic things that happened to him, because we see a lot of baby imagery. If we can actually see something that's a little more clear than, the weird swirling pieces of demons and xenomorphs and shit like that. It's the clearest stuff he does is always babies.
Yeah. Apparently he had a really traumatic birth.
That's part of the history.
They had to use forceps to get him out or something like that. And apparently he said that he has memories or feelings he had from that time. And it really bothered him a lot, as
I would believe that.
See, yeah.
I mean,
yeah, demons.
Yeah. No, he was a really well-adjusted guy.
He seemed very sweet. Like he actually very normal in the interviews.
I'm joking.
You know?
Like
this is how he channeled the demons, right?
Yeah. No, and it's it was probably the most healthy way he could do it. For him,
it's therapy,
which is better than a lot of people that bottle it up. So I mean, this was you can obviously see he shows it through his art.
It's of course just like almost any sort of freshman like entry or whatever you want to call it with his first big major piece. It's of course very different from a lot of his other stuff.
It's clear.
You still have this sort of like skinny, elongated like
very readable
because they almost look like the Watchers from the Marvel. Like the way that they have such large heads.
Yeah.
But it's interesting too. It's like what the hell? It's like they have some kind of screwdriver thing. And like guns, of course, are also like phallic, technically, like yet like another play on the theme there. So it's an interesting first entry that like once you see that, the rest of it makes a lot of sense, but it's also just, it went off, even as weird as this first one is, it went off the rails from here.
Right. Yeah. The next one is very readable too. It's the, I had, as we talk about music a lot on the show, we had to talk about Brain Salad Surgery. So this is the cover art from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And they use the Giger image of, we'll call it a reverse X-ray, like an image of this skull and this weird machinery. And you see this middle part that's clearly a woman. And if you open up, I actually have this guy on vinyl, and you can open up to reveal the rest of, I think it's Lee Tobler again, honestly, but you can open it up to see the actual woman beyond the skull.
Something about that like straight on view too. I really think, actually, to your point, T-Buck, that all those things where you're just looking on, it's almost like you're looking at the sarcophagus or something sometimes. And the fact that this album cover literally looks like you're seeing inside of something, so it's almost like it's a window inside a sarcophagus. This one strikes me as incredibly Egyptian, actually. Now that you've said that, it's like clicking even further.
Yeah, I that's a really good point. I'm glad we're discussing.
This is why we do the round table.
Yeah, I was just like, whoa, that's actually something I haven't thought about before.
I didn't think about it either. So good touch.
That is really cool. Yeah, it's such a like iconic album cover too.
Oh yeah,
I've seen it.
And
so
Debbie
many
Harry
times.
is an honorable mention, right?
Yeah,
so.
But I mean,
I think is the album name.
Yeah, so I mean, it just, again, we're starting to kind of see him. I would say this is almost safe for him.
Yeah.
You know,
So readable, safe.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like you were saying, Phil, it starts to go off the rails from here.
Yeah.
But it very cool. Like, I just love the fact too that, yeah, it's like looking into like a reverse X-ray.
Exactly. Yeah. And that leads us to some pieces we've already talked about. Lee 1 and 2. Again, this is the based off the Swiss actress Lee Tobler and named in her namesake as well. And this is where we're starting to see the bizarre, you know, but it's bizarre and still beautiful, because the first thing you're going to look at as the onlooker is that beautiful face. And then when you go out to the sides, you see the chaos, especially Lee 2. Lee 2 is very demonic, very scary. Lee 1 is, gosh, guys, the more I looked at these all like thousands, what felt like thousands of his pieces over and over again for the show, I want to say this is one of my favorites, maybe the favorite, even more than the Xenomorph stuff.
With how quote unquote tame Birth Machine was, and then even the brain salad surgery image, it's like there's only, I guess, metaphors there. If you're even really looking hard, again, like, okay, guns can be considered phallic, but like, yeah, they're actually relatively straightforward. You then get this incredibly human look first, like you said in Lee 1, but then it really has those touches of,
you go outside of
extraterrestrial. Yeah. Like outside of the core aspects of like, okay, clearly there's like a nose, mouth, and eyes. Yeah. Get outside of that. And then you start to really go like, okay, this is Giger feeling himself. This is him being like, okay, he's found his niche. Like he's just going with it at this point, and especially like with any of the rest of that series, the second one alone is already like, okay, clearly you're heading right towards Necronomicon.
And it's a perfect fade into the gates of hell. I mean, it almost looks like blistering on the sides, and then we're starting to see the phallic imagery again with the heads of the penises and things like that, and then we see more faces, more demons, more tubing machinery, and it's just. But going back to my thesis statement, I don't know. There's something even beautiful about that. I can't. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, it's almost like the face, you know, that looks the most human part of it, shows the beauty, but then kind of the complications and horror behind, you know, especially that beauty in
given
her
her history too. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so I kind of see it like through that. You can definitely see the beauty of it, and then that kind of, you know, really discomforting kind of aspect after that. The other thing I was thinking about when I was doing research for this again, I see this image and I was just thinking System Shock.
Okay.
Oh God, classic.
And I was like, oh, that looks like the System Shock cover. And then
it really does. Yeah. Wow.
They were
influenced.
They were influenced by this. So
obviously, yeah.
Another game that's being remade.
Another thing that the second I saw this one too, just immediately my mind jumped to what had to be a legit direct like, hey, you know, now that Giger's dead, in that terrible movie Alien Covenant, there is a scene where I believe it's still David or whatever, but David has the
he was the only
the protagonist. Yeah, the protagonist from the first one's body was laid out on like a thing that looks so much like this, and that her face remained, but there were just just like indistinguishable like tubes and just weird crap that it had clearly, like, David was experimenting, not really understanding like what human or whatever is. That was also the like jumped out at me big time, outside of trying to just take this for what it is. But I really thought that was it had to be like, and that was one of the few things that even stuck with me from Covenant, because the rest of it's forgettable. I thought that was cool.
Can we take a T-Buck tangent corner here?
Oh, please. We haven't done a T-Buck tangent corner in ages. Please. Where are we going?
What was he thinking during the series, Ridley Scott? Like,
oh, fuck me.
Covenant?
Like, the prequel stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, like
he dropped
originally.
The ball.
Well, originally it was supposed to be kind of a prequel to Alien, and then I remember he came out and said, well, it's not really a prequel to Alien.
I thought it was going to be like Metal Gear. It was like going to perfectly line up the series. Like, oh, we're going to finally get an explanation of X, Y, and Z, and it's just going to perfectly feed into Alien 1, and it didn't at all.
No, it didn't at all. And it was cool to see, like, what they call them, the engineers, like, and see that again.
That's based off of a painting by Giger, too.
But then it went, like, a whole different route. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like the proto Xenomorph, which didn't make sense really.
They clearly didn't map it out, kind of a la the new Star Wars sequels. Like, they didn't have a roadmap.
Or again, Metal Gear, my God, you could spend years trying to fix that timeline. They're like they keep trying to make a movie.
Son. It's
Nanomachines. Lingua franca.
Meryl.
I think I may have to pull it back, guys.
Yeah.
On that note, so let's pull it back. Okay, so I have a good pullback. Again, this is the beauty of these shows, and in this case, the Roundtable. I see a lot of the Egyptian stuff here. Like this could be a queen or a princess of the pharaohs, and this could be. I kind of see it more and more, especially off of the album cover discussion previously, and the fact that this is maybe a headpiece. You know, like a religious or spiritual or like they were doing some sort of ritualistic headpiece. Let's segue to Lee 2, which is again the exact same head, but as Philip eloquently put it, we are going further into the chaos. We're seeing more of the piping and the machines and the just madness that is some of the designs that were in his mind, but it's all surrounding Lee still.
Yeah, this incorporates it's weirdly aspects of like human centipede type stuff. There's like the skulls on the skulls with like all the different like almost like legs coming out. It's like there's obviously still human stuff with Lee's face and then with what are obviously skulls, but yeah, outside of that, like this is just all the more like I don't feel safe. Like, where am I?
Yeah, we are in hell. We are in hell right now. Yes. Like, you know what this reminds me of is, remember Doom? Like the last boss of Doom, where it's like this big, like, it looks like an image. Doom? No, it's like, I forget, maybe Doom 2 final boss.
Yeah.
Like, but like 90, Windows 95 Doom, where it's like this big image on a wall and you go in and it's like the, you do like an ID clip or something and it's like producer's head on a spike. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but this is like that image on the wall, I guess, is what I'm thinking of. That kind of imagery, things like that. So let's go ahead, and I'm looking at the clock. Let's go ahead and go into further down the rabbit hole of the erotomechanics. And this is the extreme sexual stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's
from 6 to midnight.
This is like, God, where to begin? I mean, it is just
disturbing.
Pure intercourse laden imagery everywhere.
Yeah, it's Giger characters that you don't know which one's what, but they are fucking.
And it's still like in a way, like I like that. Okay, this what looks like legs and a vagina could be the side of a wall, and just this opening. But in this, the phallic symbols are just this tubing, this machinery that's going in there, and it makes me think, and probably makes all of you think that we could probably see this kind of imagery everywhere in machinery if we really looked for it. But here it's especially with, gosh, I would say ones that really hit home is particularly 5 and 7. 5 is, I just went blank on which one's which, but there's one where it's like, it looks like 2 women,
I think that's 7.
Is that 7? Okay.
Yeah.
But then they have tubing that is phallic in nature that are connecting to their breasts and their ass. And there's a lot going on. It's almost like, I said this to Philip in our pre-show. This is like when he started getting into like the extreme detail stuff, I always thought of Picasso's Guernica, where there's all this movement and like your eyes just wanting to find all the little Easter eggs that he put on the page or the screen for us.
Easter eggs is a very cute way of putting it.
Yeah. Our show is cute. Yeah. We can talk about psychosexual stuff. We can still come out cute, especially with the T-Buck Tanager corner. So
there we go.
It's interesting how it seems like his most like comforting part, which I swear to God, they actually had at one point, whether it was like Freud actually saw some of his work or something, but basically it was just like, there's always the boobs. He always keeps just little like perky boobs with like very pointy nipples. And then the rest of it kind of really goes back to being like way more fantasy, actual like biomechanical, like we've said. So that like, it still keeps the bio part, because that is like the focus is like, if you just kept the humanoid sex parts, but then really just went all xenomorph on a lot of the rest of it, where you've got things that like, is that actual, like, is that PVC tubing with texture, or is that a bone tunnel? Like what you,
right.
You're so unsure of anything except for that. Well, that's definitely a dick. Those are boobs. Everything else is terrifying. Next page. Like,
Exactly.
Typical Sunday evening, you know?
Yeah, we could
do a whole show on like this
do a
series.
whole show on the psychology.
It was 7. I did
behind
look
this
it up.
too.
It was 7. So for all you listeners out there,
When did that one come out again? What again? Like, is this not technically like? Is this before the actual like xenomorph concept, or after technically? Because there's still just so much of it.
Didn't this come out in like the late? I think it was like 79.
Okay, well,
when this came out.
Well, just basically the thing on the left to me looks very much like the way it's got a humanoid body, but that elongated thing going off the back is clearly also like proto-alien to me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, there's something. Yeah, and I'm trying to find the words to say this, but you know, when you're talking about sex and things like that, just between humans, there's almost kind of some sort of primal element to it, just going back instinctively to our kind of wants and needs from our psychology, just from us being kind of more intelligent apes, basically, than, you know, and there's some of that to this as well, but from kind of appear almost from a mechanical sense. I don't know. It's like watching like machinery almost, if they became human or humanoid at some extent, you know, playing out kind of that those primal needs and things like that. That's kind of what I see. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Actually,
no, that kind of makes sense.
Animalistic
kind
current
of
trend
thing,
of all the AI art tools, where like if you told a machine to do like, hey, show me like weird robot sex, it's literally like it's
exactly
things blend together. It's hard like where certain parts actually begin, where they end, what they actually might be, unsure. Like, you know, technically what you're seeing, but you cannot define it. It's actually interesting that we've taken this on somebody whose art is just so striking and difficult to describe.
Yeah. And that, I think that's a good segue to go ahead and talk about the Magnum opus, where it was a culmination of all of his ideas, everything amazing, surreal, visionary, and that came through the Necronomicon series. 1 and 4 is the biggest ones, and that's the inspiration for the Alien that we've been talking about time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
And where to start here that we haven't already touched on. If you don't like, I guess we should just give a very simple definition for the people. If you haven't been paying attention, or you literally don't know, or you've been living under a fucking rock most of your life, the alien in question is the one with the really long head, really long body, tail that can rip through anything, acid blood, little mouth inside the big
blends
mouth,
in with the ceiling.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's that guy from Ridley Scott's Alien 1. Just to give like a bare bones, top to bottom visual representation of this, since now you know what to do, boys and girls. You can always pause the show and pull it up. We'd appreciate it. It's terror incarnate. I mean, it is everything. And I obviously, well, this is a show about Giger, so we need to probably, let's start here. If you actually look at the Giger pieces, it is so much more sexual, which we've already touched on. It is so much more raw and animalistic in that basic id like entity that it is. But still, you know, terrifying at the same time. I think that's a good point to your last point, Buck, is like, it's like raw animalistic instincts in a way, like what humans are at the end of the day. We're animals.
Yeah.
But it's also a futurist vision of what a monster could be. Like, it's just so many things in one.
Yeah, it's a you know, and it's kind of the cool thing about art, when people, you know, different artists impact people in different ways, or people may not find an emotional connection to a certain art piece, but when they look at another person's art piece, they might find that connection. His work like this, I can almost feel it when I'm seeing the images inside. Like it's just like I said, there's that kind of raw, kind of primal feeling that
kind of conjures like BDSM for me a little bit when I look at some of the alien stuff too.
Yeah,
sure.
And sometimes you get that kind of discomfort or kind of fear. I mean, just kind of from Western culture and stuff, especially if you were born in certain kind of parts of even this country, or in certain religions. Like, a lot of this is kind of like taboo things to talk about, especially sex. And it really brings kind of that almost discomfort kind of from, I'll just say it right now, just from like my upbringing from that. Like, you see these things and it's like, whoa, this is.
And it's front and center. It's right in your face too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think some other things that, at least for this these specific works too, these Necronoms, there's a little more dramaticism. There are humanoid poses, and you actually could look at them and go, is that pleasure? Is that like despair? Is it a little bit of both? Like it's ambiguous, even in the fact that there's like aspects of it are humanoid and then other aspects completely not. But then you've got these, like for instance in 4, the way that the arms are posed very much is like, it's almost like Shakespearean or something. It looks like classic theater, and like very much like like tell me or show me something, like what have the gods done, which again, it's like, hey, look at Giger's brain, what did the gods do? And then another interesting thing, again, just to continue to piggyback on that point of yours, Tyler, that I just loved, was again, like all the profiles, all the stark.
Yep.
There's not a ton of angles. It's either straight on or straight profile, or I guess technically side.
Right,
profile.
that's true. Yeah,
and that's again just goes back to the Egyptian thing big time. I really think that had to have been a thing, and I'm surprised I didn't read that. Not that I'm like world's best Googler, but it's all the
when
more.
we first found you, it said world's best Googler.
I lied.
That's what I
resume.
saw.
They're all fiction. But yeah, it's all these things. Like I do think that this leading to the literal, like, oh, this is going to be like the alien, the creature in a movie. It almost is like the most quintessential, because again, it's borderline tortured, but like you said, it evokes BDSM. Like, is that torture not also some kind of pleasure?
It just hit me how to put it. I feel like when we're looking at the works of Giger, specifically with the Necronoms and what the alien had become, here to me, and guys chime in if you feel differently, it's more human, but in Ridley Scott's Alien, it's more alien. Right? It's more of a monster. It's a feature creature through and through. Where here it's kind of, in your point, Philip, there are a lot of human like posing and things like that. And it's just, and then also to bring it to your point, Buck, is it's that raw animalistic human side as well. And so when I look at his pieces, there's a humanity to it still, even though these are monsters.
And we were there, I think it was Philip that just said, it just popped in my head. We were talking about some of the poses and what they're making in it. How did you put it? Their poses
were dramatic, Shakespearean, perhaps theatrical.
I was just thinking, like, I've seen, like, when I've been in Europe, going to some of these even Renaissance era or pre-Renaissance era paintings, how some of the poses are very similar too. I was just thinking of one. I don't know if it's a straight, a great comparison, but when I was in Tallinn looking at Dance Macabre, that painting, St. Nicholas Church, I mean, just kind of that kind of, and I think a lot of that was based off of a lot of the death and scenes, maybe late plague era, kind of seeing some of that, kind of influence as well. But it does kind of remind me some of the poses when you said that, like, it's almost a little bit like some of those Renaissance paintings you've seen a lot, and just turned up on the goth notch.
Times 100. Yeah. And you can find these works. So, like, part of the reason it's called Necronom is there's a famous fictional book called the Necronomicon, and that's what he named his collections of pieces after. So you can buy H.R. Giger's Necronomicon. I think there's a 1 and 2 collection, like book collection of his pieces, and find everything there and fall into this world. And that leads us to talking about his other works, though, before we tie a bow on this bee. And I want to go really quick through this because I'm eager to talk about the conclusions. We like to bring it on home and tell the good people why this is so important. But before we get there, I want to talk about just a lightning round of his other stuff. And that includes, as already stated, music. He's done a lot of album covers for people, including, we already said, Brain Salad Surgery. These are the album names, and then I'll give the artists. So Brain Salad Surgery by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Danzig 3 by Danzig, Attack by Magma, Heartwork by Carcass, Megatherion by Celtic Frost, Cuckoo by, I already said, Debbie Harry of Blondie fame, and Frankenchrist by the Ted Kennedys. So there, I think I just want to touch on Frankenchrist real quick because the cover, it wasn't on the cover. They wanted to do, so this was what they used inside of the Dead Kennedys, cover art, like the liner notes inside the booklet, is essentially the MC Escher version of a set of butt, vagina, and penises. All like, have you guys seen this one?
Yes, I have. Yeah. As of doing this show, yes.
You had to, right? So it's like a collage. Like if you think of like an MC Escher series of like birds like morphing into something, it was essentially just a repetitive. It was a repetition of butts and vaginas and penises all converging into intercourse. So very sexual. He was also a very famous, but not probably commercially famous, critically famous film director. He made Swissbait in 1968, Tagtrum in 1973, Giger's Necronomicon in 1975, and Giger's Alien in 1979. He also did furniture. He did, I know Buck may have something to say about this, Jodorowsky's Dune. He made the Harkonnen Capo chair. And Dune, the concept art for that never came to be.
It's the greatest movie that was never made. I seriously, to this day, I so want it. I want to sit for like 3 hours and watch this like acid trip.
Yeah.
That basically he was designing. I mean, Salvador Dali was supposed to be the emperor.
We've talked about it in a couple of our shows.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Oh, gosh.
You could have, what's great? You could have maybe watched it with one of Giger's interior design Giger bars that are actually still in operation to this day.
I didn't know anything about this, and I'm
Isn't that cool? Yeah. You can go to Europe and you can go to a bar that's themed with all Giger art, like the chairs are fucking Harkonnen Capo chairs. There's fucking xenomorphs on the walls. I mean, it would be kind of scary if you got drunk and you're like, or tripping on something. But yeah, but I think it'd be cool as far as just an experience. Ibanez Guitars commissioned him for an H.R. Giger signature series. Ibanez Guitar, and Jonathan Davis of Korn commissioned him to design and sculpt a microphone stand. Yeah. I've seen when I was in my new metal phase in like middle school, high school, I went to go see Korn, and he had the stand. I remember.
Damn straight he did.
Yeah. And then of course we've already talked about this in gaming. Obviously anything from the Alien franchise was his concept designs, but as well as Darkseid 1 and 2, Tormentum Dark Sorrow, and Tormentum 2, Guy Nog Wings of War, and as already stated, Scorn, which will be released in October 2022, as well as the web series based on Alien Isolation. His works have won a number of accolades, and of course he has an incredible legacy that we'll talk about in a minute, but his accolades include he won an Academy Award for Best Achievement in Visual Effects for their design work, and he has been admitted to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Hall of Fame in 2013 for his contributions to the field, of course. And he has, this is the icing, probably the magnum opus of his career, if you will, is he has a museum dedicated to him. I thought that was great. I personally have never been to this museum. It's in Saint Germain. It's at Saint Germain Castle in Switzerland. And but this is on my bucket list. I don't know how you guys feel, but I definitely want to see this before I die. Yeah,
would love to. I think this museum had a lot to do with how he used to talk about he really didn't feel like he got nearly enough credit, which, to be fair, again, like I guarantee you most people did not know who did the creature. They probably just thought it was some Hollywood dude. But yeah, he was kind of bummed about how it felt like his works weren't properly recognized for how impactful they were. And I feel like the museum was kind of like what he was owed by that point.
Yeah, Fox really screwed him, especially starting with Aliens. And I know James Cameron has, apologized to him both privately and publicly when he was alive about it. Yeah, I mean, the fact that they just started taking his name off of everything, I know that bothered him quite a bit.
So let's bring it on home. So let's give him the credit that was due and that he deserves, and talk about the legacy that is H.R. Giger. So let's start with you, Mr. Theodore Buck. Tell the good people why we should study Mr. Giger and why he's so important.
Well, I think it goes back to what you said at the beginning. There was never anybody like him before, and there's probably never going to be anybody like him in the future. So, I mean, I think that's the big part of it, is when you have one of these, really influential artists, or kind of, once in a generation, once in a lifetime kind of people, that's when you really look back, because the fact that so much of his stuff has been kind of either copied or made a homage or been influenced other artists, I think that's just the sign how important he is to not just art, but just kind of our culture as a whole.
As with Probably music more than anything, given that, again, it's not a visual medium, so it's easier for it to kind of squeak past you with, like, forgetting. But, like, once you realize just how impactful a band is and you start to, like, you not only hear them, but their influence more, I think that could not be less just true for Giger's work, in that once you familiarize yourself with his artistic space, with his just very unique niche again, of just the erotomechanic, the biomechanic, all that stuff, you'll just be like, wow, this really is everywhere. It's the scope of it, it's almost hard to keep in mind just talking about even some of the direct things that he did. I mean, like you even said too earlier, my brain has already gone back to, again, like Tool music videos and albums and stuff.
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
it screams of it, to the point where you might even start going and looking things up and being like, oh, was this Giger? Like, was that? It's probably just, hopefully you're all going to spiral more and more and be like, as we did. And the whole kind of point of this episode is to inspire everyone to go out and look at this fantastic artist and just, hopefully find some new appreciation and interesting perspective on not just this one person, but yeah, just the very obvious impact across, just like, clearly both like art and just illustrations, or whatever you want to call it, as well as obviously like throughout Hollywood since then.
Absolutely. And there you have it, folks. The life, the legacy, the career that is H.R. Giger. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank my guest, Mr. Philip Church. Thanks for coming on again. And Mr. Theodore Buck, thanks for coming out of retirement and helping.
Thanks for uncanceling me.
Yeah, we had to. We got to do the work, guys.
I know.
We got to do the work. Thanks again for listening. Before we go, we got a little extra for you, a little icing on the cake, a little cherry on top with what we call the gem of the week. If you're new to the show, don't know what the gem of the week is, it's something we like to talk about, of course, at the end of our shows, but doesn't quite fit into the scheme of the episode. It may be on our radar in the last day, last week, maybe last month, but we got to give it to you guys so you guys can dig deeper. Before we get there, we need to talk about their sponsor. They are sponsored by Zencastr. Zencastr is our go-to tool for remote podcast recordings. What's great is that you can record separate audio and video tracks, and it's all backed up on a secured cloud, so you never lose your hard work. Even better, it's easy to use, and there's nothing to download. So go to zen.ai, that's zen.ai/art of the beholder, or just use promo code Art of the Beholder and get 30% off your first 3 months with a pro account. Now back to the gems. Mine's short and sweet. It's two artists, but two sides of the same coin. It's a bunch of artists I got into after getting into Giger, honestly, and they were easily inspired by Giger's work, and that is Chet and Cam DeLeon. Both ended up working with Tool, just to kind of close some circles like we do here. Who went first? Let's start with Philip. Philip, you go first. What's your gem?
It is a band called the Zolas. They are from Vancouver, Canada.
Zolas,
and
okay.
They've got really interesting, they've kind of bounced between some very like nostalgic 80s as well as nostalgic 90s sounds. Like at one point I remember getting hints of new wave, and then other parts I was like, wow, this makes me think of like the Adventures of Pete and Pete. And I had the pleasure of seeing them. It turns out I know somebody who knows the lead singer. So ever since kind of getting turned on to them a short while ago, I actually went and saw them play here in Atlanta, where I'm from. As they were doing like a big North American tour. They'd never been here, and it was actually not only a really fun show, but getting to meet the singer, really cool dudes. Just awesome. nice fun guys. So good stuff. Go listen to their albums. The Zolas, Zolas.
Mine is somewhat art related, but not really. I've been really into a video game lately called Farthest Frontier. And it is a city builder survival. It is a survival city builder kind of happening in kind of medieval, between that and kind of late game ends right before the Industrial Revolution. But it's definitely one of the hardest games I've ever played. Farthest Frontier. Basically, the premise is you start out with a group of people in the middle of the frontier, and you have to build a city, and you have to survive weather, animals, predators, famine, disease, and then people. So
pretty new.
It's
one.
interesting.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you have it, folks. If you like that, of course, you can check out our stuff at novodayproductions.com. There you'll find things like the Entropy Sessions, Adulteration, Post Meridium, Cancel Culture Lotto. Of course, you'll see ads for this show. You can check out all of our other episodes, and you can follow us at @_Novo_day and at Novo Day Media. You can we would appreciate a like, a subscribe, a follow, do all the damn things. Buck, as Buck likes to say, smash that like button, okay?
Smash it.
Rate and
Smash
review.
that like button. Click the bell.
And if you'd like to sponsor our little love child here, you can reach out to us at novodaymedia@gmail.com. If you would like to help Mr. Theodore St. Augustus Buck get back into the
Julius.
fray. Oh, we added one. Ooh, I like it. We're gonna set up a GoFundMe account to get him uncanceled. You're gonna find that in the liner notes and in the description below. Click on the button and get him the funds he needs to get out of this dark corner.
Send me to Margaritaville.
Out of moral jail.
That's it. That's how we do it.
I love it.
And then Mr. Mr. Church, tell the good people how they can get a hold of you.
I have a website. It's Philip with one L in it. philipchurch.tech, as in technology. It's got my commercial demo that I recorded very recently. It's got samples from my audiobooks from roughly the past like 10 years, my whole career, including my most recent one called Tendrils, a fun sci-fi sort of thriller. Is the most recent one, and then I'll have another one that will be coming out not too long from now as well. I'm in the middle of some fun new stuff too. So philipchurch.tech. Check it out.
Check it out, guys. And until next time,
#uncancelbuck.
Thank you.
We should put that as a hashtag when we promote this show. Okay, we got to now. Until next time, guys, be good to each other. And as always, good luck and Godspeed. We love you and Mr. Buck and the Parrot Heads.
Do we?
Somewhat.
Bye.
Art of the Beholder is brought to you by Novo Day Productions. Created and hosted by Novo Day and the Novo Day Collective. Facebook.com/Novo Day Media, @Novo Day Media on Twitter and Instagram. Music by A Company. Facebook.com/ACOMusic123. ACO on Spotify. Logo design by Tom Justice, JESTUS, of thejusticecompany.com. And executively produced by Clayton Anderson. All rights reserved.
Hot.
It's nanomachines. Lingua franca.
Meryl.